And good evening and welcome to Live Online, Castanet's Mayoral Forum from downtown Kelowna at the Streaming Cafe. It is a night of first, not the first candidates forum by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly the first live online political forum in Kelowna. So in keeping with this high-tech groundbreaking format, we're going to fast-track the pace of this forum through rapid-fire responses, limiting the candidates to 30 seconds, including their bio, answers, and rebuttals to see if they can think on their feet and challenge their improvisational skills. To add a little spice to the live factor here, we are also accepting questions via Twitter. The address, you can see it on the screen. So the format is going to look like this. Bios, round of questions, a total of 8. Rebuttals after every candidate answers the question. Questions via Twitter with rebuttals, and finally closing remarks. So without wasting any time, let me introduce the 4 candidates running for mayor from my left to right, beginning with Cal Condi, Walter Gray, Sharon Shepherd, and Ken Chung. And we're going to skip right to the bios. We're going to skip right to the bios, beginning with Cal Condi. Cal, you have 30 seconds.
Hi, my name is Cal Condi. I'm running for mayor. My platform is at www.calformayor.com. I was up on the bus this morning at 7 a.m. I took it out to UBCO, talking to the riders and trying to get some feedback on our transit system. Let me tell you, there's some pissed off riders out there. I don't blame them. I've been taking some videos and I'll post them on my website. I think if all the city staff, councillors, and mayor had to take our transit to work for 1 month, we'd see some changes. We got huge problems at City Hall, and they're called excuses. Elect me for mayor, we'll get rid of the excuses, and we'll start listening to the people like we should. Thanks.
Thank you, Cal. Walter Gray.
Thank you. I'm Walter Gray, and I'm running to be Kelowna's mayor. In changing times like these, we cannot close the door to progress. Openness must be the guiding light that moves us forward. We must be open for business, open to new ideas, and open to change. We must be open to discussing, debating, and taking decisive action to improve the areas that need strengthening in our community and preserve and continue to build on all that we do well. As mayor, I will be open and inclusive. I want to move Kelowna forward. On November 19th, vote Walter Gray, mayor.
Sharon Shepherd.
6 years ago, I ran on change and sustainability. That change is all around you. Policies have been implemented that support sustainability with solar, water usage, air protection, recycling programs, and alternative transportation. We are open for business, named BC's most business-friendly city. The recently adopted official community plan, titled 2030 Greening Our Future, was completed with community input. I am a leader that focuses on what needs to be done, what can be done, and then gets it done. My goal is to pursue a zero budget increase, concentrating on the priorities for our city to have a safe, healthy, inclusive, and economically vibrant home. Vote for Sharon Shepherd, November 19th for mayor.
Ken Chung.
My name is Ken Chung. You can find most of my information either at Facebook at Elect Ken Chung or kenchung.ca. I'm running for mayor because I was asked by several people to step up. They were looking for a new change, fresh change. We know what we've had for the last 15 years, and we want to look forward with positive change. I bring decisive leadership skills. I work through a collaborative leadership process and look at the opportunity to taking Kelowna down the next decade. Thank you.
Excellent. Moving right along, we're going to attack the first series of questions. There are 3 questions under the subheading of policing and crime. Question number 1. Despite documented concerns about gang activity in the city, businesses are reluctant to implement a no-colors policy for fear of retaliation. What would you do as mayor to see that change? Cal Condi.
I think we need some sort of identification of like a list or somehow like an open journal of everybody who's involved in crime, drug trafficking, and we just have to shine light on this problem. These types of problems tend to disappear if a light's shone on them.
Walter Gray.
The no colors policy, I think, is a fair policy. I mean, golf clubs have codes in terms of what you can wear. This was attempted 12 years or so ago. It was sort of successful, but having learned from that experience, I believe what we have to do now is get buy-in from all the nightclubs and get buy-in from the restaurants. And if they all do it, then it'll be effective. It was only partially effective in the past. We've got to improve on that.
Sharon Shepherd.
There are already some businesses that have this policy in place, and I have met with the business community recently, the Hotel Motel Association, the Pubs and Restaurants Association, and they are very willing to work towards a no-color policy, but it does require the entire community to try and jump into this initiative, as well as, I believe, the entire Okanagan, and I would work with the mayors from up and down the valley to also have them consider a no-color policy for their communities.
Ken Chung.
I know many businesses that have implemented it, and some of them stand firm. If you take a look at the Ramada, who has actually stepped up and dealt with that issue this last summer. And when the community stands together, you'll be amazed to see what happens. But it really takes a community to stand together and behind their beliefs.
Question number 2 under policing and crime, and we're going to start with Ken. In the news today, a dangerous offender is being released into our community. Of course, the RCMP handle this. But what policies or powers would you like council to have when a dangerous offender is released into our community, aside from public notification? Ken.
Well, I think public notification is very important. I think as a community, it's awareness. And I think, again, it comes down to the community communicating well with each other. It's not just putting out some information pamphlets here and there. It's about letting the schools know. It's about the neighborhood associations getting a very proactive role in getting that information out so that our families do feel safer.
Sharon Shepherd.
Well, apparently this individual has decided that he is not going to come to Kelowna, and which is a good thing, but it does pose the question is what do you do? Certainly there are restrictions if someone is released into our community, and letting the community know would be the most important thing to do.
Walter Gray.
Well, when an offender such as this does decide to come to Kelowna, we do get notice in advance that that's happening, so that's the good news. But what we have to do is we have to, as a community, make sure that we network very closely together through the media, whether it's pictures on posts or whether it's banner lines in newspapers or messages on television, and clearly make that individual recognize that they're not welcome here. Obviously, they then have to give notice that they're going to another community, but we have to worry about our community first.
Cal Condi.
If he's dangerous, watch him. Assign police to him. Watch him 24/7. Don't take your eyes off him. He's dangerous. He can't be allowed to be unmonitored.
And I'll remind you again, there is a room for rebuttal after every candidate answers the question, okay? If RCMP, this is question number 3 under the subheading of policing and crime. If RCMP contract negotiations fail, would you be in favor of a municipal police force? And Cal, you take it from there.
Short answer is yes, but I'd like to see a polling of the citizens to see how they find what they feel. I think we should open the chambers up, bring them in, and we'll talk to them in there. We'll use the chambers for the way it should be used to talk to the citizens.
Walter Gray.
Well, I believe that we have to make sure the RCMP contract is renewed. Not under any condition, obviously, but the Solicitor General has to work very diligently to make that happen. They have in 2 other provinces already. Ours, I understand, will be concluded or should be concluded by the end of March. I believe the RCMP is the best way to go. The other 2 options, city police or provincial police, if the province decides to have one. But the RCMP are the most cost efficient for this community, even though it does cost our taxpayers $19.5 million a year.
Sharon Shepherd.
I am certain that the RCMP contract is going to be signed and the Solicitor General is working on our behalf. However, if for any reason it failed, there would be many municipalities in this province that would be working together, and that's when the discussion would happen, whether it's provincial or municipal policing that would be an alternative. But I'm certain that we'll have RCMP contracts signed.
Ken Chung.
I too agree that the contracts will be ratified by March. I think that if it actually did happen that it wasn't, I think that it would probably be more logical to look at a provincial police force rather than just a municipal one. More, again, back to the cost and making sure that it's the right thing for the whole province.
Any rebuttals?
Just a question, actually, to Mayor Candidate Gray about the amount of money he says that it costs us annually. He has stated $19.5 million. It's actually more than that.
Well, yes, it's $22 million, but remember the city taxpayer pays 90% of the bill. So if you do the math, it's about $19.5 million for the Kelowna city taxpayer.
But it also includes, we get money from our gaming account, so it is included in that total as well.
It still costs us, the contract still costs us $19.5 million. Where the money comes from, it ultimately comes from the taxpayer. You are right that some of the money comes as a result of the city's revenues from gaming, but it could just as easily go to parks or something else. It's $19.5 million, and that's more than 50% more than it was 6 years ago.
I just don't want people confused that that's the total of the cost for RCMP, because it is much more than that.
Transportation, one question, and we'll begin with Ken. Many, including some council members, say they're not working. Is it time to get rid of HOV lanes?
Well, the HOV lanes, I find them actually quite ineffective myself. I find them very frustrating. So I do believe that it'd be time to get rid of the HOV lanes on the highway. It's just not effective.
Sharon Shepherd.
The HOV lanes were put into place for the bus rapid transit system to work efficiently. Unfortunately, they were in place 1 year before we implemented the bus rapid transit. What I've been advocating for is that we look at the hours of operation of the HOV. We've recently met with the Ministry of Transportation. They are willing to consider hours of operation where they would not be in effect, let's say from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I certainly would be in favor of that.
Walter Gray.
Well, the HOV lanes, I thought it was a rather bizarre idea in the beginning, but as you sort of monitor it and try to give it a chance, you look at it and say, is it good, is it bad? And it is true, the HOV lane was installed to make bus rapid transit work. But what I can tell you is, for the life of me, I can't believe that police officers would be taking their time to monitor it, because in the first place, how would you prove that a person wasn't, in or out of the lane at the appropriate time? That would be a poor resource, poor assignment of time to the police. I think the HOV lane, as long as the lines are there and haven't worn out yet, let's see them for what they are. They're HOV courtesy lanes. When you see somebody there, one person in a car, they know you're watching, and they know you're not driving in the spirit of Harvey Avenue.
Kel Condi.
Yeah, I say get rid of them. They were dumb when they were put in. They're dumb now, and they're not going to get any smarter. If I was mayor, I'd get my sleeping bag, go down and sleep in the guy's office until he took them out.
Moving on to environment versus development. It's been said that because of an...
Can I ask a question, Kelly, about
Certainly.
why does someone think that a mayor has time to go and sleep in someone's office?
It's called getting things done.
Well, I don't think you can get something done by going and sleeping in someone's office. That's just a comment, sorry.
Well, maybe watch me.
I wanted to rebut on something earlier, but I didn't realize, you didn't say time for rebuttal, and that was on the item about, and it's very great when you're number one about being a business-friendly city, the survey that was done recently. The thing I wanted to rebut was really to add additional information. While that is true, if you really read the whole report, you'll find out the reason we were number one as a business-friendly city is because it was entrepreneurs, people finding their own work, creating their own opportunities in business in the community. And good on them. Entrepreneurs are what make things happen. But as far as a city aware of business, city awareness of business, we had a dismal 5% awareness rate.
So there were 12 indicators for that particular study, and we were measured on all those indicators, and I think that we should just be very proud that we are in the top of BC and top 13 in Canada, and that's what we have to celebrate for business friendly.
And now we have to focus on business awareness at City Hall.
And that is fine. We are already doing that.
Walter!
Very good. Environment versus development. It's been said that because of an ever-increasing demand on water, growth in the Kelowna area may have to be capped or is not sustainable. Do you agree with that statement? And Cal, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, I got to plead the fifth on the water on that basic question. I'm not going to make stuff up, and sorry, I don't know the answer to that one.
Can I rephrase it for you? Do you think there's enough water in the valley to sustain the growth in the Kelowna area?
We got a pretty big lake here. I think there's enough water in that lake for most people. It's 50 miles long.
Fair enough. Walter Gray.
There's enough water now But because we're so aware of our resources, we have to start considering the day that there's not enough water. When I was the mayor a number of years ago, we started a number of measures. One of them was putting in water meters. We thought they wouldn't be popular. Actually, they were. The goal was to reduce the water consumption by the residents of this city by 20%, and we achieved that goal. And then we went on to educating people about xeriscaping and drought-tolerant plants and those sort of things. I think it's always important to treat water as a precious resource. I mean, water costs more than a bottle of beer. We should treat it seriously.
Sharon Shepherd.
Water amount is certainly something that people worry about for the growth in our valley. And the Okanagan Water Basin has done an evaluation as to how much water is going to be needed to sustain this valley. The growth within the city of Kelowna is projected to go to 160,000 by 2030. And we have put in water sustainability plans to be sure that we have enough water to enable people to come and live in and reside here. But it is going to take a great deal of effort to make sure we do water conservation efforts.
Ken Chung.
I definitely agree. Water conservation efforts are important. I implemented them in my property when I did my redevelopment of my land, and I think it's exceptionally important to be encouraging people on any development process to take those measures to go with water-friendly landscape. It's a very important process. Doesn't matter what building.
And the door is open for rebuttals. Moving on to leadership. The word leadership has become central in this election campaign. How is your style of leadership different from the others? And we'll start with you, Ken.
Well, I have a collaborative leadership approach to most things I do. I was actually known as a solution specialist around North America through the real estate industry to go and help people solve the challenges that they had. They were looking for a win-win solution that they were unable to achieve on their own. It's one of the things I take pride in being able to do is bring people together and find a common ground and make it a win-win-win. I think that the leadership in Kelowna is huge. This council is going to be shaped up and looking for the next decade, and I want to be able to be part of that for the next decade.
Sharon Shepherd.
It's not really about leadership, it's about style of leadership. From my perspective, I'm a level-headed consensus approach leader, enthusiastic and passionate, always the optimist, dedicated and honest, educated on the issue. Otherwise, I request information, and I'm relentless in pursuing the needs of our city.
Walter Gray.
I believe a leader is one that commands respect of those people around them and gives respect at the same time. I think true leadership is a person that has the ability to come to a conclusion through consensus, but at the appropriate time, call the question, make a decision, and move on. You can't waffle and you can't vacillate. A leader must make a decision in concert with his council.
And Kel Condi.
I believe we have to listen to the people to start making our decisions. We've got our council chambers sitting there 250 days a year not being used. If we can get the people in who have the ideas, there's 100,000 of them. Let's bring them in. Let's talk to them. Let's use those council chambers for the way they were intended. I'll listen to the people. What they tell me is what I'll do. That's what my job would be.
Any rebuttals? Tourism and signage. Some tourists and locals have long complained that Kelowna's aesthetics are poor, particularly signage along Highway 97. Too many. Do you agree with that statement, and what are you prepared to do about it? And we're going to start with you, Cal.
I'm not sure what exactly we can do about it. It's not our land. They have the rights to put the signs up. I mean, we can complain about it till the cows come home, but unless we start talking to them and negotiating with the people who have the authority to put the signs up, we're not going to get much done. So we have to bring them in, have a chat with them, talk to them.
Walter Gray.
I'm trying to determine the purpose of your question. Are you talking about the signs I'm thinking at the north end of the city where we welcome people in different languages? Or are you talking about the commercial portable signs that line the highways?
Commercial portable.
Well, first of all, the campaign signs should be dealt with first. There are far too many of them. They look too shabby, and the election just can't come soon enough because it's only a few days after that all the signs will go. But to your question, They have been bylaws in the past in terms of limited use of those signs, the little portable yellow ones on wheels and whatnot. And I believe we have to tighten that up. It does make it look rather shabby, and they're outside oftentimes business enterprises that are worth millions of dollars, and yet it just makes it and all of the other businesses look second rate. We've got to control those a little better and get a better spirit among retailers along the highway.
Sharon Shepherd?
I do agree that the signage issue is a concern up and down our highway. We often get blamed for the big billboards that are on the other side of the lake and have to describe to people that we don't have control over those. Signage bylaws are very important. We review them annually and come up with, now we're trying to deal with the electronic signage. Trying to have more specific signage on single big properties, I think, is the way to try and approach them, and being sure that we have nice landscaping along the boulevard to soften the effect.
Ken Chung?
I too agree that we always hear that problem about the billboards on the other side. I know that there's nothing we can do about that, but the signs that we were speaking to with respect to the ones that are brought in temporarily and put in place, a lot of them aren't temporary. They sit there for months and months, and they share it amongst the different businesses in the complex. I think that there's got to be a more creative way to use those opportunities, create signage for people or signage opportunities that they can share rather than the portable ones. And maybe it means stretching the bylaws a bit to make it happen, but I think it's possible.
Any rebuttals?
I was just going to question about stretching the bylaws. Is that something that we should do? I've not heard that before.
Well, stretching the bylaws, our current sign restrictions are quite tight, and I think that there's an opportunity to maybe explore opportunities with the current sign in front of a building and being able to either expand it or modify that to something that maybe wasn't originally intended for, in order to achieve the ability for people to get their message out there in a cost-effective way.
So we should change the bylaw then?
Yeah, change the bylaw, if you will. On a case-by-case basis, I think it needs to be something that somebody has to bring forward and say, this makes sense, it's logical, and it would remove some of these temporary signs. I think I'd be for that.
A question from pet lovers. People love animals, but some people don't love other people's animals. It's been talked about implementing a cat bylaw. Do you agree? And Ken, you take it away.
Cat bylaw. Well, I'm a pet lover. I have a dog. I don't have a cat, but I do like them. Do I think there should be a bylaw put in place to control them? Oh goodness, I would think it falls into any other bylaw where if you have a lot of complaints about a particular neighbor's cat, then yes, it needs to be addressed. I don't know about implementing a whole bunch of stringent bylaws like cat leashes and so on.
Sharon Shepherd.
This is actually a serious problem, particularly in the Glenmore area. There is a lot of cat colonies, and it has really impacted the community. We have a group of volunteers that are trying to keep ahead of this issue. The regional district dealt with the consideration of a cat bylaw a number of years ago, and at that time decided not to move forward with it. I know that it is coming back to the regional district to discuss the implications of having such a bylaw.
Walter Gray.
I can recall when I was mayor previously, this was being discussed, and we surveyed other cities that had attempted to put in cat bylaws. They did. In fact, Edmonton rings a bell, but I don't want to quote it, but it was an Alberta community, and it won't work. Because if you're going to have a bylaw, you have to enforce it. It's easy to catch a dog, but it's not easy to catch a cat. So why have a bylaw that you can't enforce? In Glenmore, and I live there, by the way, I wish we had a few more cats in our neighborhood, and then we wouldn't have mice.
Kel Condi.
It's what our council chambers are for. We put a big ad in the
Cats?
paper. We gotta bring the cats into the
Mice.
council chambers. No. We put an
That'd be
ad in the
just
paper. We're gonna have it.
Sorry.
The ad would say kitty, kitty, kitty. That's what the council chambers are for. We put an ad in the paper. We're going to have a discussion about whether or not to have a cat bylaw. People show up, and we get their feelings on it, and then we did make a decision from there.
Could I just add a final comment? People are the problem, not their pets. I'm mainly thinking of dogs, but people are the problem, not their pets. And I think that extends to cats as well.
However, the cat issue in this community is not people, because these cats have been let loose, they reproduce, and they are the ones that are causing the problem. So there's
People let them loose.
no one directly responsible.
I actually sort of I agree with Walter, though. It does come back to the people, because responsible people are typically responsible pet owners. I had a few rentals at one point, and I always found that. Now, when you have somebody that can't control their pet, then you have to address that, and I think that's where bylaws come into place. As far as cats go, again, it's a very difficult one, and I can't see it working.
I would really like people to get in touch with the Okanagan Humane Society if they want to know the real problems that we do have in this community with with concerns about cats, and why they would really like us to consider a cat bylaw. Not saying we should have one, I just think we should look at all of the information that's out in our community.
Excellent. Jumping now to the Twitter questions. The first round is candidate specific, and we're going to start with Walter. Walter, the controversy over refusing to sign the Gay Pride Proclamation continues to haunt you. How are you going to shake that ghost?
Well, I had to make my comments within 30 seconds, so I thought I would write them down. To clarify what I stated on Monday at the public forum, so it's very, very clear. When elected, I will consult with my new council, because they were elected by the same electors as I, to get their views on what they feel their new mayor should do. I will then make a decision. What we really need to be doing between now and the election is focusing on the important things. Economy, jobs, transit, public safety, the things that affect the overall community. And don't forget, this is a most important election.
That's not your question. That's not your question. You're not answering the question. You're blabbering on about your...
He asked what my opinion was and what my view was, and I'm restating what I said Monday.
That's not your question.
Get a table and have him up here and have him get in on this if he wishes.
Okay. Just for our viewing audience, members of the streaming cafe audience have taken issue with that.
Just a comment that the mayor does have the authority to do proclamations. I have done so for 6 years. I made that decision when I ran for mayor. I committed to that. I carried through with that. And I do about 50 or 60 a year. So there's a lot of groups that really do appreciate us doing proclamations. I don't think it's a big issue.
Anybody else want to comment?
You know,
Well,
I've
let
actually
me
been-
just add, I would very much like to, and I enjoy doing proclamations, but I was put in the position where I had to make a decision. I had to sign all proclamations as presented to me, or sign no proclamations for anybody, because it was a matter of discrimination. And I didn't want to be put in the position of having to sign a proclamation, for example, for pro-choice and also for pro-life.
And why wouldn't you be able to do for both? It's just acknowledging that a certain day, a certain event, or a week is happening on behalf of a group. That's
The way
all
I
it is.
acknowledge those events is I went to the events, and I went to the Gay Pride events. I went to their opening of their clubhouse, and I voted to help fund it.
You know what? I actually been asked this question a lot in the last week and a half, and it really comes down to being all-inclusive. I think as a community, we need to be all-inclusive, and it means inviting everybody and taking care of everybody as a whole. Nobody should be independently discriminated against, and I'm not saying that's what happened. I understand Walter's put into a choice, and I wouldn't have wanted had to be in that position either.
I would say we're just all created equal, and got to be good to everybody.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Thank you.
Excellent. This is a question for Sharon. Sharon, you've stated in the past you're not in favor of restricting building heights, and yet council has capped it at 26 stories. How do you explain the change?
When I'm not in favor of restricting building heights, well, 26 stories is what height that we are saying is maximum. I'm hoping that we're not going to have all 26-story heights in our community. However, if someone came forward and had a 30-story presentation, we certainly would look at it, as long as it had some things that were a benefit to the community. So we just have a certain height that's in our plans, but I'm not going to say that we should be 60, 100, or whatever. 26 is what the community felt that they were comfortable with. That's the height that is stated. If anything is different than 26, then the public will give input on that.
Rebuttals.
Well, you know, I take it then from the mayor's comment on that it's an arbitrary number. And at the end of the day, it's probably an engineering decision. It's also a social decision too, because you have to make sure that that skyline is it's going to be there for a long, long time. And I think the real focus should be to densify the town centers where we can and where we can handle the traffic coming to and fro. But also respect the lake. The lake belongs to the public, and we should step back from the lake.
I was talking to a lady the other night, and she had a great analogy of what we should look at it. It would be like the lake is the stage, and then the theater comes back. So we don't put anything right in front of the stage. Everybody goes back, like in an auditorium. You can all look at the lake.
Ken?
And I believe these are actually more of a guideline. These are, like you say, it's something that is put in place, that's what you can expect. And I think that every development should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Some may have a need or desire to be a little bit higher depending on what they're offering, and it may make sense at the time, and it'll have to be decided at the time. I also think that some people would take advantage of respecting the lake and its viewpoints, and also consider that when they're looking at the overall neighborhood outcome.
Twitter question for Cal. Cal, you've made some aloof statements leaving many wondering how they can take you seriously. How can the electorate take you seriously?
Well, if I'm mayor, it won't be boring. I will guarantee you that. Now, yes, I've got a good sense of humor. I admit it, and I'm not going to apologize for it. It's part of my way of dealing. I've never seen two comedians start a war or build machine guns or anything like that. I think maybe humor is what the world needs more of. So I'm a strong believer in that. I'm not going to apologize for it. But I am serious. I do know the issues. I've been learning. There is times to be serious, but there's also times to have fun, and that's my gig. Thanks.
Anybody? Okay. And one for Ken. Ken, first you said you're running for council, then you switched to mayor. Why the change?
Thank you for the question. It was really important for me to originally step up and make a difference in council, have a more balanced approach on council. When the onslaught of people stepped up that were a very dynamic group, you have to admit there's a lot of really good quality people in there, and I don't see anything but an amazing council come out of it. What we didn't see is the people stepping up for the mayor's chair to make a difference, to offer a fresh change. People had approached me and asked me if I would consider making the switch. I had to look at that and consider it, and it was a very important decision. And I do believe that the Kelowna deserves somebody that's willing to be here for the long haul to take this city down the next decade, and I was willing to step up and do that.
Excellent.
I don't know that a rebuttal is in order, but maybe I could challenge the speakers that fit the format.
By all means.
What we have to remember is we have a number of things going on right now, and the public has to ask themselves, is now the time for that fresh face straight off the street, as it were, with no previous local government experience?
Yes.
We're going to go into a very, very difficult 3 years. It's 36 months in 3 years. 22, possibly 24 of those months are going to be involved in the very difficult digging up and reshaping of Bernard Avenue. Excellent project, but it's going to be difficult. It has to be somebody that's had the experience in the past and can handle that. Also, the matter of the economy.
I'd like to rebut to that. The experience isn't necessarily the issue. I think coming up with creative solutions to our bigger challenges here. Bernard's going to be ripped up. That's going to happen. We've already seen the plan. There's nothing more that really needs to be said about that part of it. There are going to be major challenges for the businesses downtown. We have to consider what's going to be important to them. People want change right now. They're screaming for it. I think you can see that by the amount of people that showed up for council, and you can see that by the unrest in the community. If so many people didn't ask me to do it, I wouldn't have been considering it. And I think that this town really needs somebody that's willing to do it. The learning curve is there for sure. I won't deny that, but at the same time, I'm willing to dedicate the time to make it happen, and I have the experience and the know-how to do so.
Next Twitter question, and we'd like to thank the Castanet viewers for submitting these. They are coming in fast and furious. And I remind you that we are broadcasting this live. This question deals with Cedar Avenue. Question, and this is for all of you. Do you favor park or development on lakefront lots located north and south of Cedar Avenue? That question again, do you favor park or development on lakefront lots located north and south of Cedar Avenue? And we'll start with you, Cal.
park.
Walter.
I am very aware that there has been a process and it's kind of sidelined at the moment till the election is finished. But Kelowna has been assembling land wherever it can across the city on Okanagan Lake. It has a buy, sever, and sell policy usually. In that particular case, and I can recall the acquisition of those properties, 4 south of Cedar and 7 north of Cedar, have been going on for over 25 years. And they were done because that was going to be a legacy for those people's taxes that paid for those properties 25 years ago. I believe we can develop the South Pandosy area, but it has to respect that special public space that has huge potential.
Thank you. Sharon Shepherd.
I believe in park along our lakefront, particularly if the city owns land, and I'm talking in generality here because that specific project I had to declare a conflict of interest because I am part owner of property within the surrounding area. But any land that the city has purchased costs a great deal of money, and now that we do have land that we own, I believe it should be park.
And just as an added bit of information, I'm not making a point, but just so the public knows, the value of those 4 plus 7 lots would be approximately $15 million on the market today. And so what do? Sell it? $15 million to pay for police for 9 months? Or do you keep it forever and ever and ever for public use?
Okay.
Absolutely,
Ken,
we keep it.
We're just going to allow Ken to answer the question, then we can open up the rebuttal.
Hey, I do believe that if the property was purchased for the purpose of a park, that's what it should be used for. I also understand that every once in a while something drastic may need to be changed. I can't see that in this case, and north and south of that I do think should be park. I do see a vision for Kelowna all the way down the lake, and it includes a lot of beachfront for the public to use, and minimize or mixed use of some buildings across from it.
Sure.
I was just going to comment, there was a buy-sell agreement that the city had in place where we would purchase properties and then sever off the front so that it would become community access and then resell. And it just got too expensive for the taxpayer dollars to be utilized for that process. So I think while we can and we do own property, that we should keep that as park, because we can't afford to keep trying to do the buy-sell agreement, even though when it comes available, we are adding on to the parks. For example, Rotary Beach, where we added 2 new properties and added them to the beaches that are already in existence, and that's kind of the future planning for extension of parks in the city.
Walter.
And if we really have vision, and I think we are doing that now as a community, but we got to stay the course, we could achieve what Waikiki Beach did. It took a lot of time, but eventually Waikiki bought back the beach, and look what it's done for them.
Cal, do you want to?
It's really a simple matter of listening to the people on this, and I think that it's overwhelming. From the public meetings, 300 people showed up, and I think 305 wanted a park, so I think it's park.
Park.
Okay, we're going to move on to arts and culture. And the question is, so what are your visions as far as promoting and encouraging the arts in Kelowna? And we're going to start with you, Ken.
All arts and culture are a big part of community. I think it really gives a holistic approach to bringing back the basics. People in the city need to come back together, and I think the arts and culture is a big component of making that happen. It's really valued everywhere. I know that my family indulges in every opportunity to participate downtown, wherever it's laid out for us to enjoy it.
Sharon.
Well, we have this a cultural district, which I totally support, and as we enhance the culture in the community, that's certainly an area we have to pay attention to. But just recently, we adopted 10 strategies in our cultural plan, many months and years, practically, of having input from the community. It talks about enhancing support programs, optimizing facilities, integrating heritage, experiencing a creative city, cultural citizenship, capitalizing and connecting and walking the talk. So I think we're on our way with following this plan that is now has been adopted by council.
Walter.
I'm very proud that during my very first of 3 terms that this vision was created. And I must give credit to a fellow by the name of Stephen Thorne, who really showed as the Pied Piper where we could go with arts in Kelowna. I supported it right from the beginning, not only because arts are the soul of the community, but because arts as a destination center, which Kelowna's Art District has now become, is really good for business and tourism. I mean, we have, Ballet Kelowna, we have the Symphony, we have, and commercial art things too, such as the Kelowna Actors Studio. I mean, those guys do a tremendous job of providing art in this community, and not one dime paid by the taxpayer. I love it.
Cal?
I'd love to see the council chambers used to bring in all the people involved. I love the arts, but I also feel it should be self-sustaining. I think they should make a profit, but I think using some creative ideas and input from possibly a combination of the business community and from the arts people, that we can have it both ways. We can make it profitable, and we can make it so we have a lot of culture and a lot of art.
Another
Kelly-
law, yes?
Kelly, I just want to comment about having a vision and then implementing it. And it's great to have a vision, but unless you have a very supportive council, that vision can't go forward. And Stephen Thorne was certainly the instrumental person in having that happen. But that was before, certainly I was elected and Walter was elected. He sort of started the plan, and then the council of the day helped move it forward. So it takes a whole council, at least a majority of council, to do that. And it was a very supportive council to move it forward.
The council was a team.
Exactly.
Yes, Cal?
Okay, so just vote for a council that likes the arts, okay, guys?
They need to like the arts, yes.
Moving from arts to incarceration, we'll say.
That's
This
a
one is
switch.
another live Twitter feed, and the question is, and this is for everybody, why is Kelowna letting the provincial prison slip away when it could create hundreds of much-needed high-paying jobs and meet a need for Kelowna, which is the judicial center of the Okanagan? And we're going to start with you, Ken.
Do you know, I believe that, yes, it would bring a lot of jobs, probably some higher paying jobs. I also think it brings an element to our town that we're trying to discourage already. We have enough challenges with the gangs in our community that we're not trying to encourage any more activity to come here. And any other community that I've seen the prison set up in, people there are afraid. People there are afraid for what is going to happen in their community at any given time because they just don't know.
Sharon.
Well, we didn't, as council, let it slip away. We actually had a zoned piece of property that could accommodate the new prison that was proposed for the valley, but it was the ministers and the premier at the time that decided that it was not going to move forward because it was apparently going to impact Lake Country and the Okanagan Band, who had some real issues with that. I encouraged the ministers to talk to the local government and the First Nation government to reconsider bringing it back. It seems absolutely silly that they're going to have to go out and now purchase some other land, but they are trying to come to an agreement with some other community in the valley, and apparently we will get a prison maybe one day in the valley, which is needed.
I am glad, by the way, it's
Oh,
not
we'll just
Summit
give Walter-
and Summit and Spall where they had put it in the paper on April 1st.
Oh, that, yes.
And Walter?
I didn't agree to that.
I think some people fear a prison, and yet, I don't know. I can't imagine a prisoner escaping and hanging around the prison, quite honestly. So I don't think that's an issue. If you talk to people who live in Kingston, Ontario, or people who live in St. John's, Newfoundland, whether they like a prison in their town or not, it is not a negative. And it is about creating good paying jobs, people that not only work their lives here, but they retire here and they raise families here. The province bought the property for a prison, and yes, they canceled the project. But how Kelowna allowed it to slip away, I don't know. That's why Lumbee and all of these other places are scrambling. Some of them don't want it. But this community is large enough to really appreciate the economic driver it is. Prisons are not going to be a dangerous business, if you like, or industry in our community. I think it's a good, solid one. Doesn't have to worry about going bankrupt. Those jobs will be there forever.
Cal Condi.
No, it's just on a gut instinct level. I wouldn't like to see a prison in Kelowna. I just don't like the whatever. Kelowna's a prison town. I'm sorry. I don't like the sound of it. I'd be against it.
The door is open for rebuttal.
So I just want to clarify that council did not let it slip away. We agreed to a site. The site went through a very intensive public hearing. There is a zone site in our city. When the provincial government asked whether council would reconsider and find a different site, council was not willing to do that. The site is already there. It's been paid. It's been available for the province to put in a provincial prison.
So
I've
just
actually-
because I'm
Let's put a
curious,
fruit packing plant on that site
Well,
then.
it probably will be right now. Could be.
so why isn't it that site? The province owns it.
Because the premier and the ministers decided that they did not want to locate it there because of the impact on Lake Country and the Okanagan Band.
Okay, fine. I'll accept that.
There are a lot of communities who I've actually worked in some of these communities who do have a fear about the element it brings. It's not that it doesn't bring good paying jobs. It definitely does. It can boost the economy. And you're right. It'll never not be funded and it will always be full. And that's a challenge for the communities that are around it. So I do see their concerns. I do appreciate the economic impact, but there are concerns for people, and I've seen them afraid. I've heard their fears because I've worked in their communities.
Next Twitter question.
Can I just, our number one industry here is tourism, and I don't know if it would affect the tourism industry to want to go to a prison town. That would sort of,
St. John's, Newfoundland does very well. Anyway, we've disposed of the question, and I'm satisfied with the answers.
Thank
well, I'm not. I don't want a prison.
you. Okay, let's
Not
move on.
Kelowna.
Another Twitter question. This one is for Sharon. Sharon, do you regret spending money on a city logo when there are so many poverty-stricken citizens?
Well, you know, when money is allocated to do city business, we don't reallocate it to not look after the community citizens. The logo was very controversial. The amount of money that actually was spent on the logo itself is about $15,000. The discussion of $80,000 incorporated all of the other policy around it. Quite frankly, if the community wanted to redo a logo, I would be very happy to do that.
The door's open.
Jeepers creepers, we can't, I mean, how many logos are we going to have? It's going to be like an NHL hockey team.
Many people are not satisfied with the logo, and I think people want something more representative of our community that shows when you hand them a button exactly what it represents. And I have a challenge with
I
it.
like the old logo, and then when they changed it at great expense, but expense aside, I didn't particularly like it. But I'm gradually starting to understand that that's our new logo. And sometimes we simply have to move on and do bigger things. And to now go back and talk about a third logo, my goodness gracious, where are we going with this?
It would be a new logo.
I realize.
You know what? The logo is always a topic of conversation for it. I know many people who aren't for it, and some of them thought, okay. But now I agree. We're there. We have it. We need to move on. I think there's a lot more pressing things that we need to address. We have major social concerns that need to be precedent over a new logo. And maybe one time when we're back in the flourishing economy, we can look at doing something.
Cal?
I think this speaks to the core issue of what's wrong. We don't talk to the people about whether they want a new logo or not. We got these council chambers, bring the people in. Do you guys want a new logo? Let's figure it out. That's what the chambers is there for.
Kelly, I just want to clarify too, you know, I am very proud of our coat of arms, and as the mayor, that's what goes on my letterhead, and I have the actual pins with the coat of arms. I'm very proud of that, but it's very complicated, you know, to make that our logo. The logo is actually to do with the corporation, but I think there are a lot of unhappy people with that decision at some point. You know, I agree that this economy, it's not the time to invest money in it. We could have a contest and use our local community to come up with a potential logo that fits.
Excellent. Well, we're having so much fun here. We're going to continue with the Twitter feeds because it is fun. Here is a question for all of you, and it deals with drugs in downtown. As mayor, what would you do to clean up the rampant drug use in broad daylight on our city streets? And if my memory serves me right, we're going to start with Ken.
Okay. I really believe that we need a larger volunteer base. I actually ran into a couple of our downtown patrollers this evening on my way over here and had a nice little conversation with them. I think a lot of it comes back to the community stepping up and supporting itself. I remember being downtown Vancouver with the Guardian Angels, and when when they started up, and I think that was a great concept. I think the auxiliary police and having more people participate on that would be fantastic. It's more about presence. If you're there, they're not necessarily going to do it. And it's going to create less opportunity for them and make it a lot happier place for everybody else.
Sharon.
Well, the issue of it being a rampant drug downtown, I would be concerned that that's the perspective that the individuals have in our community. 6 years ago, certainly there were some real major issues that were very visible. Since then, we have implemented a 5-member dedicated police force to the downtown. They work hand in hand with our bylaw department. They work hand in hand with the DKA security as well as private security. And we need to have more people out on the street. We need to have more people living downtown. And with the development that's been approved but just hasn't gone ahead, I think we're working towards that vision. But in the meantime, we have to stay dedicated to the RCMP commitment to the downtown.
Walter.
There's really 2 issues to do with drugs. One is, of course, the drug dealers. That's criminal, and we have to put pressure on those involved in the drug trade. There's the other side, and that's the human side, and that's the victims, if you like, the drug users. And I feel badly for them because they didn't want to be that way. They wound up getting that way. And we do have a lot of very, very good programs in this city. There's Freedom's Door. There's all kinds of, the Gospel Mission, Salvation Army that do a tremendous job with their boards of directors and their volunteers to help save these people that are on drugs. And I would like to see the focus there on the one side. That's the community side of the equation. And we have to band around and help these people get off drugs and get a roof over their head and feel dignified and move on in their lives. But as far as the dealers are concerned, that's where we have to analyze the resources we have with the police, because that's where it starts and that's where it's got to end. We got to get tough on crime when it comes to drug dealing.
Cal.
Wayne, you got to stand up and wing that whole thing. Time's up. He's got this thing.
Go ahead, Cal.
I think it speaks to many issues. I mean, you're able to push the drug problem around to various parts in town, but not really deal with it directly. I think it speaks, Walter touched on, I think it speaks to the homelessness issue. These people made a bad decision a lot of years ago, and now they're living with it, and a lot of them are stuck up out on the streets with no homes. Give them some little home, and the problem's inside there anyway, and it's a start back.
You know what, I actually don't necessarily agree it's all just about giving them a home. I think that there are a lot of challenges. I agree that, yes, we got to get tough on crime, we got to get tough on the drug use downtown and everywhere, period. But again, that comes down to the community supporting itself, and the community getting behind the police, and not being afraid to actually stand up and do something about it. There are citizens who were willing to stand up and help, and now I even heard an ad on the radio for auxiliary police. They're looking for more help. They need it, and we need to volunteer it.
The other new program in our community, it is community courts, and it's trying to deal with individuals that are caught in the situation and have an opportunity to go through a program where they can do a restoration.
Restoration.
Be restored, yes. And so I'm very proud that community court has been in existence for about 1.5 years in our city, and it is very good to try and deal with the many individuals. That it's a revolving door in the court system, and it is a challenge because of the court system that individuals keep being put out in the street without the support, and our social workers and all of our support programs are having a tough time trying to keep up with the needs of those individuals. So we have to invest in trying to help individuals get out of the system that they've been caught in.
Okay.
Just seeing as everybody else had a second
Sure.
shot, maybe I can too, if I may.
You may.
I mentioned a couple of agencies that were helping these people, and they're having tremendous success stories, but I should have also mentioned Crossroads as an example. They help with these people, and they're having a great success rate. But the one that will always stand out in my mind is actually in my final month as mayor, when we were successful in bringing back money from Victoria, $4.75 million, partnering with $2 million from the federal government for Carrington House. I didn't know the name. It wasn't given a name until it was born.
Cardington.
Sorry, on St. Paul Street. Out of curiosity, I checked with the superintendent of the RCMP to see if there's any police issues around there. He says, since it's been up and functioning, there hasn't been one police complaint. And I only mention that because the people running that should be proud of that, and this community should be proud, I certainly am, that we stood up to the business people on that block that said it was going to be bad for business. They don't even know it's there now.
Okay, Cal, you want to add anything? No? No. Okay. This is going to be the last of our Twitter questions, and it's going to the dogs. And here it is, and this is in light of a attack in the Kelowna area, and the question goes, should we have a bylaw on dangerous dogs? And we're going to start with you, Cal.
Yes.
Walter.
One word, yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
You bet.
You bet. Okay. And did anybody want to discuss this further?
All I can tell you that the regional district is the one that is responsible for the dog bylaw, and that they are looking at how to work towards solutions for dangerous dogs.
Okay, well, let me-
I don't think we can be selective by breed, though. It's just that if they're dangerous, they're dangerous. Let's treat them like they are.
While the regional district may be the contractor that handles enforcement for the city of Kelowna, it's still the city of Kelowna's problem and their issue because they pay for it. Let's make that quite clear. But I maybe said it in an answer to another question earlier, but when it comes to dogs, it really comes to their owners. And I think that's where we have to look. Some people clearly are not suited to have dogs. They're not prepared to take the time to train them or be with them, or like I do every morning, walk our little Bichon. And so it's the owners we have to get to and help them be better dog owners or help them not be dog owners at all.
I agree with that as well. I think that it comes down to the dog owners, but I believe that there are some breeds that are just bred specifically to be dangerous dogs. And that's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate for the dogs, but I believe that we need to protect our people and our society as a whole. I have friends of mine that have these dogs, and some of them are very nice. I've never seen an aggression come out of them. Unfortunately, you just don't know because it's what they were bred for.
Okay, excellent. That wraps up the series of questions. Excuse me. And we're going to wrap things up with the closing remarks. And Ken, you get to go first, 30 seconds.
Well, I'd like to first start by saying thank you to everybody out in the public, everybody that's watching. I've had a lot of fantastic meeting and greeting over the last 3 or 4 weeks. People have been very supportive. Now, if I can encourage you just to grab 1 or 2 people with you to get out and vote, I'll actually win this thing.
Sharon.
A special thank you again to the Streaming Cafe for hosting us this evening, and an acknowledgement of all of the great veterans in our community that make sure everyone goes out and participates in Remembrance Day tomorrow. For me, our Kelowna is about leadership, a leadership that is balanced, representing all people in a caring and a respectful way. And our Kelowna is about harmonizing the economics with the social responsibility, the environmental protection, and cultural vitality that ensures the best quality of life for everyone now and well into the future. It is about my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren having the best quality of life in this community. I believe in that vision. I believe in our Kelowna. Please come out and vote. It is very important that we get people out to vote. Vote Sharon Shepherd, re-elect for mayor.
Walter Gray.
I'd also like to thank Castanet and all of those that made this rather inaugural technological advance in terms of what you can do online. That's really great, and you're to be congratulated. I want to be the mayor of Kelowna because I see a lot of things that need to be done. First of all, we have to vision ahead for many things that are way down the road, such as a second crossing. One of my projects I really want to work on badly is to get the rails and trails back on track, because it was destined when we started that. We were so successful with our negotiations with the CN, and I believe we can reopen those and move that all the way out to the university and to the airport and beyond. Housing is absolutely vital. Affordable housing housing, the right kind of housing in all the sectors of the community, with a particular focus on the working poor, those families, particularly with children, that have incomes of less than $40,000 a year. Everybody needs a roof over their head. That's basic. It's a basic need. It's a basic right, and we have to work toward that. Festivals. We need more festivals in Kelowna. We've got to stop canceling them. The Bernard Avenue project is very great. Homeless people have to be helped. Central Green, I think, is fine, and the new downtown plan called My Plan, I think, is good, and I really want to be working on that with the community. Agriculture, always forgotten. We've got to work on agriculture and see if we can get things happening for them with regard to their relationship with the Agricultural Land Commission.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Please vote Walter Gray on the 19th.
All right. And finally, Cal Condi.
He just stole all my ideas again. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. This has been good. Summation, we need to use the chambers for what they were intended, and that's to listen to the people. The people have to understand they have somewhere they can come and talk to the council and leadership of the city. That's what it's there for. We need to open that door up and make people understand that's what it's there for. The groups, the associations, everybody who has a complaint or a bitch, come down and we'll hear you. We'll talk to you. All people are created equal. There's no difference between any of us. We all have issues. We all have problems. We have to listen to the issues. We have to figure the solution out. We have to say no to excuses. And we just have to get the job done. And thanks for having me.
And thank you for coming. That wraps up.
Can I get that extra minute in there too?
Can we rebut?
No rebuttal on this one.
Darn.
That wraps
I've got a
up
list.
an historic event in terms of live online politics. A first for Kelowna and a first for Castanet. We'd like to thank the Castanet viewers for joining us, but most of all, we'd like to thank the candidates for putting their name on the ballot to make this a better municipality. A large round of applause, please. For those who missed it, you're more than welcome to log on to Castanet. This event has been recorded and will be broadcast again in its entirety. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Hayes.
That's interesting.